He stood 6'6", set his beard ablaze before each fight, and could make entire ports fall silent with a single glance. Yet, the real story of Blackbeard isn't just in the smoke, the cannons, or the terror he inspired, it's in the odd choices he made, the tactics no other pirate dared attempt before him. How did everything fall into place so flawlessly? And what was he truly after? Blackbeard was like a towering skyscraper amidst a sea of single-story shacks. Standing at 6 feet 6 inches, he commanded every room he stepped into at a time when most men were just over 5.5 feet tall. Meeting Blackbeard felt like standing next to a talking ship's mast. Born circa 1680 in Bristol, England, this future scourge of the seas didn't begin life swinging cutlasses. His true name was probably Edward Teach or Edward Thatch, though there's still debate over the spelling of his name. What everyone agrees on is his enormous size. Witnesses described shoulders wide enough to fill doorways and arms as thick as anchor chains. But what people truly never forgot were his eyes, piercing and intense, the sort that could make even honest merchants squirm in casual chats. What set Blackbeard apart from ordinary pirates was that he could read and write. That was uncommon in the 1700s, especially for pirates who often came from impoverished backgrounds. Education usually required wealth or connections, so Blackbeard probably came from a relatively well-off family, which makes his decision to become a pirate even more intriguing. It's like discovering that your village schoolteacher turned into a sea wolf. Before turning to piracy, Blackbeard likely worked as a privateer during the War of the Spanish Succession. Privateers were pirates authorized by the government to attack enemy vessels legally. Basically, piracy with an official license. This experience taught him how to navigate, fight, and lead men under stress. By around 1716, Blackbeard had become part of Benjamin Hornigold's crew in the Bahamas. The area had turned into a pirate haven where criminals could relax, resupply, and plot their future raids. The British government had essentially neglected the islands, leaving them open for whoever was powerful enough to seize control. Hornigold saw right away what Blackbeard could do. The newbie had the commanding presence to scare rivals, the smarts to plan good raids, and the toughness to keep his crew in line. In just a few months, Hornigold put him in charge of his own ship. The rise was quick. Blackbeard had that uncommon mix of sharpness and menace that naturally commanded respect. His mere presence could settle disputes before they even began. While most sailors took years to progress from deckhand to captain, Blackbeard advanced through the ranks with remarkable speed, as effortlessly as a monkey scurries up the rigging. Before long, Blackbeard would require a name that reflected his rising legend. He picked Blackbeard, and that choice would elevate him from a mere pirate to a legend. The switch in name was like shifting from Edward the Clerk to Edward the Terror, same person, but a totally different reputation. Yet, before that, he needed to craft an intimidating image that would make seasoned sailors bow without even a fight. Blackbeard found his greatest psychological tool in his own face. While most pirates depended on brute strength or artillery, he transformed his look into a terror-inducing force that could intimidate foes before a single shot was fired. His beard was his crowning creation, long, bushy, and midnight black, cascading down to his waist like a shadowy waterfall. But the true brilliance was in his pre-fight routine. Blackbeard would braid slow-burning hemp fuses into his beard and set them alight before each attack. These fuses burned leisurely, sending out dense black smoke that formed a fiery cloud above his head. His use of fuses wasn't confined to his beard, he also threaded them beneath his hat, around his neck, anywhere that would produce even more smoke. Null, roll, assistant. Swords, knives, and cutlasses hung from his belt like deadly ornaments. The psychological effect was overwhelming. When merchant ships spotted Blackbeard's ship drawing near, they could see him on the deck, smoke pouring from his head, weapons shimmering in the sun. His crew kept their distance, allowing their captain to command the view. Most ships gave up without a fight. Blackbeard's fierce reputation and ghostly look crushed their fighting spirit. Witnesses said he seemed like something straight out of the darkest hell itself. Facing Blackbeard was like deliberately sailing into a hurricane, possible, but definitely unwise. It was all an unintentional spectacle. Blackbeard carefully crafted every aspect of his terrifying image. He realized that a single terrifying image could deter an entire fight, sparing his crew from needless losses while still reaching his objectives. Fear proved more effective than violence. The tactic was so successful that Blackbeard hardly ever had to engage in combat. As soon as ships saw his recognizable silhouette, they'd raise white flags in surrender. Just being near him was enough to dominate large parts of the sea. He had transformed piracy into almost a theatrical act, where the audience paid with their cargo instead of money. News of Blackbeard's arrival spread quicker than his own movements. Sailors spun stories that grew more sensational with each telling, but no tale could truly match the experience of confronting that smoke-breathing giant face to face. Before long, Blackbeard would demonstrate that his influence went well beyond just ships. In May 1718, he made his boldest move so far. Rather than chasing down lone vessels, he chose to seize an entire city. Charleston, South Carolina, one of colonial America's key ports, filled with wealth and activity, was caught completely off guard as the threat approached. Blackbeard showed up with 4 ships and more than 300 men. It wasn't just a quick hit or a random clash, this was a complete takeover. He arranged his fleet to seal off every bit of harbor traffic, forming a nearly unstoppable barrier of cannons and brigands. Nothing could get into Charleston, and nothing could escape. The mental blow from the blockade hit right away and was wholeheartedly damaging. Charleston's residents watched in helplessness as their connection to the outside world faded away. Trade halted. Lines of communication went silent. Blackbeard had essentially anchored right at the city's doorstep, but what truly instilled fear was his hostages. Among them were some notable figures, including the son of a Charleston judge. Null, role: assistant. It was as if a sea wolf was asking for bandages instead of treasure, practical, yet surprisingly unexpected. From Blackbeard's view, the request was perfectly logical. His crew faced brutal conditions where disease claimed more lives than battles ever did. A healthy crew was more valuable than any treasure, especially since more loot could always be taken later. For almost a week, Charleston seemed frozen in time. Ships sat still in the harbor. Shops shut down, and families grew anxious, fearing their loved ones who were taken and wondering if they might be next. The colonial authorities had no plan to handle this. When the blockade revealed how terrifying Blackbeard could be, no place felt secure anymore. Even in big cities with their own defenses and governments watching over them, he could show up anywhere, seize whatever he pleased, and walk away without repercussions. The man had transformed piracy into a movable siege weapon, capable of anchoring itself along any stretch of the coast. Throughout the week-long blockade, not a single shot was exchanged. Blackbeard got his medical supplies and freed all the hostages without harm, just as he had promised. He sailed off quietly, leaving Charleston to wonder if he would come back. News of the blockade at Charleston spread quickly along the American coast. Blackbeard's image shifted from a fierce pirate to an unstoppable force of nature. Null, role: assistant. In mid-1718, as he sailed toward North Carolina, he met with Governor Charles Eden and accepted a royal pardon. The most notorious pirate in America had seemingly chosen to leave the pirate life behind, like a shark trying to fit in as a pond fish. The pardon was legally official, but Blackbeard's retirement was entirely a sham. He moved close to Bath, North Carolina, married a local woman claimed to be his 14th wife, though historians argue whether he truly gathered wives as if collecting trading contacts, and purchased a decent home. To his new neighbors, he was just Blackbeard, a former sailor seeking a quiet life. He went to church, took part in community gatherings, and played the part of a reformed criminal flawlessly. The change was as obvious as a cannon trying to hide among garden tools, but Blackbeard's love for the sea was too strong to ignore. He kept a small boat called Adventure and secretly carried on his old trade. He'd plunder ships and then go back to his quiet life in Bath, a perfect cover. Who would suspect a respectable married man of being a pirate? Governor Eden wasn't simply naive about his renowned new citizen, he was complicit. Blackbeard had struck deals with North Carolina officials that shielded him from any charges. Blackbeard gained protection and a secure spot to keep his increasing riches, while Eden took a sizable share of the gains and gained a valuable ally capable of removing political rivals. North Carolina saw a boost in trade, even if some of the goods had recently been stolen from other colonies, and Blackbeard embraced his new position with enthusiasm. He threw dinner parties for local elites, donated to charity, and became a prominent figure in the community. The man went from intimidating sea captains to hosting tea parties, quite a career change, but neighboring colonies weren't fooled by this act. Null, role: assistant. Other colonial governors started urging their peers to step up. Virginia's governor decided it was time to put an end to the facade for good. If North Carolina wouldn't address their pirate issue, Virginia would handle it themselves. It was like calling in your crew when your neighbor refuses to fix their leaking ship. To capture or kill Blackbeard once and for all. Lieutenant Robert Maynard led the operation with 2 tiny ships and a crew of 60 men. Blackbeard's fleet intentionally picked smaller vessels that could maneuver in the shallow waters surrounding Ocracoke Island, where Blackbeard was hiding. It was like bringing fishing boats to battle a warship, only these fishing boats had teeth. Blackbeard was accompanied by just 25 men, significantly fewer than his typical crew. After months of easygoing retirement, he had become slack about security. When Maynard's ships finally appeared on the horizon, he was caught by surprise, though not overly concerned. He'd survived tougher situations before. The fight began with cannon fire. Blackbeard's ship was bigger and better armed, which gave him the upper hand at first. But Maynard had anticipated this moment and had a clever plan. He kept most of his crew hidden below deck, making his ship seem nearly deserted and vulnerable. Seeing what seemed like a straightforward opportunity, Blackbeard chose to take on the fight himself. He climbed aboard Maynard's ship with most of his crew, expecting to encounter just a few defenders. Instead, he walked right into a well-laid trap. Maynard's hidden men appeared from below deck, encircling the pirates on all sides. The ambush was flawless, but Blackbeard wasn't about to give up. What followed turned into legend. Blackbeard took 5 gunshot wounds and at least 20 stab wounds, yet kept fighting as if driven by a madness. The guy was more difficult to take down than his own ship. He fought with pistols until they were useless, then switched to swords, and finally battled with his fists as his crew fell all around him. The battle was fierce and frantic. Blackbeard's large frame made him tough to take down. Despite taking several hits, he kept swinging his cutlass with deadly skill. It was like trying to halt a damaged cannon that kept firing. At last, after losing a great deal of blood, Blackbeard sank to the deck. Null, role: assistant. Word of his last battle raced fast, each retelling adding more flair to the tale. The man who had spent his life forging legends transformed into one himself, like a boat merging with the ocean it once charted. Yet, the lingering question was, what became of all the riches he had amassed? Someone's curious about the same thing: where did Blackbeard hide his treasure? The truth might let down all the treasure hunters out there. There's probably no buried loot at all. Even after hundreds of years of searching, digging, and chasing after mysterious maps, no one has ever uncovered a single chest of Blackbeard's gold. But back in 1996, a marine archaeologist uncovered something even more precious than gold: Blackbeard's real ship. The wreck of Queen Anne's Revenge was discovered off the coast of North Carolina, holding over 250,000 artifacts that reveal the true story of pirate life. Originally, the ship was a French slave vessel named La Concorde. Blackbeard seized it and turned it into a floating stronghold armed with more than 40 cannons. Archaeological discoveries shed light on how pirates truly lived, fought, and endured. It's like uncovering a ship's log that reveals the real story rather than exaggerated tales. Numerous well-known Blackbeard legends have proven to be entirely false. There's no proof he murdered his crew for fun, nor any evidence he drank rum with gunpowder. These stories are just maritime legends that became more exaggerated as time went on. The myths stick around because Blackbeard's true story was already extraordinary enough: a 6'6" giant who made his reputation. Ghost stories say Blackbeard still roams the Outer Banks, forever looking for his lost head. Tour guides enjoyed these supernatural legends, but they missed the real message. Blackbeard's true legacy isn't about ghosts, it's about the mind. He showed that fear can be stronger than any weapon. His meticulously built persona, the blazing beard, the array of weapons, the intimidating aura, these became the blueprint for how pirates are imagined forever. He essentially invented the pirate archetype that every nautical outlaw has used since. Even with a career spanning just around 2 years, Blackbeard cemented his place as history's most legendary pirate. Stories stick more than mere facts. Blackbeard died in 1718, yet he became almost immortal. His legend keeps expanding, fueling books, movies, and endless retellings. The man who transformed fear into his ultimate weapon became truly fearless and immortal. It was likely the legacy he would have wanted. Beard ablaze, he blockaded major cities and fought to the very end against impossible odds, all without any need for fiction to make him captivating.